Mute ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ. Hi everyone, welcome back to the 16th session of the workshop technology classes. In the last class, we had a discussion about the sheet metal operations. So it includes cutting, notching, slitting, and bending, shearing, and shaping, etc. All the process we had a discussion in the last class. So in this class, we left out one topic, that is press and press working. So it is having different types of press, so which is basically required for doing the sheet metal operations. For example, if you want to punch, or if you want to get a bending operation, so all these things, all these parts are created or done by means of using some pressing machines. So those pressing machines, generally we are going to classify according to the mechanical type or hydraulic type or pneumatic type, or basically in the previous days they were using the hand, that is comes under a manual type of press and press working. So in this class, let us have a discussion about the press and what you mean by the press, and what are the types of press, and the main components of a pressing machine, that is the power press, and the different applications that is depending upon the type of the press. So let us have a discussion one by one. So we have a syllabus of introduction to press working, types of presses. In that, exclusively power press and polar fly press is there in your syllabus, and the application of presses. So if it comes under the introduction part of a press working, so basically we are going to refer the press working as a method of the mass production unit, which involves the cold working. That is very much important. So here we are not supposed to generally we are not supposed to heat the metal to the higher temperature. Then we are what we are going to do the operations, bending, notching, or slitting, or something like that. We should not supposed to do like that. So almost all the cases we are going to do in the cold working session only. So because it is having a sheet of thickness 0.6 to 6 mm, so it can be bent, or if we can get any required job or any required shape by means of doing some press work. So that's why generally we are going to prefer the cold working. Hot working pressing machines also there, but generally they are going to prefer the cold working of a metals. So usually these are generally contains a thin sheets or stripped to give a desired shape. So since the press working does not involve any heating process or something else, so we can achieve the close tolerance and with high surface finish, so which can be obtained by means of using this press working machine. So that's why major application is in the industrial field and in automobile industries to give a body shape or to get any desired products, so which is usable for a normal human being in household applications, or general for constructing the building or somewhere else. They are going to use this press working for getting that job output. So here in this press working, we have some classification, that is according to the source of power. Majorly, the source of power available for doing the press work is generally the electrical power and what we call the mechanical power. So which we can get it by means of converting that fuel energy into mechanical energy, or by converting that electrical motor power into mechanical shaft work. And of course, the latest and nowadays generally they are going to prefer the hydraulic energy, because it having that capacity to do the higher pressure at a higher pressure condition. And of course, pneumatic also one of the part. So these are depending upon the source of power, we are going to classify the types of presses. And second one, according to the design of frame, so the major frame part of the pressing machine, so it having certain shape. According to that shape, we are going to define it, or we are going to classify the presses. So that is inclined press and straight side, gap, horn, and arch. These are all the various types according to the design of the frame. And the third one is according to the drive mechanism, in which way we are going to give a motion to that press work of a die and punch. So that is depending upon the drive mechanism. So generally they are going to prefer the drive mechanism as a crank or eccentric type, or generally rack and pinion, so screw type of drive mechanism, and toggle drive mechanism. So these are all the classification according to the drive mechanism. And then of course the according to the number of slides, so it may be a single action or double action or multiple action, it may be triple action or more than triple action. According to this we are going to classify the process. And the next and final thing is according to the usage. So if you consider the power press working machine in a sheet metal operation, so there are variety of sheet metal operations we have to do. So that is shearing, punching, coining, stretching, extruding, bending, or giving some other shapes. So there we can use according to the application and according to the sheet metal operations. So we have a classification of a process. So all these are comes under a variety depending upon the source of power, design of frame and drive mechanism, number of slides, and the use. So in that, generally we are going to concentrate on the different the power available for doing this press work. So in that manual process, so the manual process generally in the previous days they were using. So these presses, I can give you the small example, that is a fly or ball type of press. So that is generally made by manual method. So they are going to use the manual method or a hand work to do the pressing work. And the second one is mechanical press. Mechanical press is nothing but by means of using some flywheel to recycle the energy, and by using some crank and crankshaft or eccentrics or some other levers, so they are going to get the desired drive mechanism. So that is depending upon the mechanical process. And of course the hydraulic press, here hydraulic press means we are going to use the fluid as a major component to work or to move the piston towards upward or downward direction, or to get any reciprocating or oscillating or a rotary motion. So generally we are going to prefer this hydraulic press because it will give a better performance compared to the mechanical process or manual process. And somewhere else the specific application they are going to use the pneumatic process. So pneumatic process means it is having generally the air as a compressed air as a major component, so in that piston cylinder arrangement. So by means of using that compressed air they are going to get the desired motion, it may be a reciprocating or oscillating motion, they are going to get it. And it is generally suitable for a light duty operations only, means a little bit small work operation. So when the pressure requirement is very low, so at that condition they are going to use the hydraulic pneumatic process majorly. So these are all the major categories according to the power requirement, that is manual process, mechanical process, hydraulic process, and the pneumatic process. So in your syllabus you have a two major type of presses, that is a manual presses example, that is a fly press, and the power press, that is the example for mechanical process. So you have only two components in your syllabus. So let us have a discussion about the fly press and power press one by one. So in the picture what you are seeing, so this is a model, or this is a practical application of a fly press. So generally if you observe this image, so it is having at the both ends of this crank you have two balls. So that's why this is also called it as a ball or fly presses. So here you are having the screws, and there is a basement, and there's a punch, and there's a die. So this is a simple mechanism. When you turn these balls entered the hand uh, in the clockwise direction or anti-clockwise direction, so then you will get a motion towards upward or downward direction. So this is a very simple mechanism. In the previous day they were using to get a punch or to get a desired the sheet metal operations. So if you comes under the theoretical part explanation, so this press is operated by generally the human hands, and it is bench mounted press commonly used for production of a small component because the high pressure handling and high pressure application for a human being it is very difficult, so that's why it is applicable for a small component. So if you consider the different components of this fly presses, majorly it is having the body, and it is the bottommost portion is a bed, and the topmost portion is a arm. So that arm both side it is having the mass, that is we are call it as an ball, and it is having the multi-start threads. So that is very much important because it is the major component which is going to give a motion towards upward or downward direction. So it is connected with the ram, so this will move upward or downward, and this ram is connected with the hole of punch, so it will create the punch or it will create the hole for the workpiece. So workpiece generally fed at this portion. When you consider the working condition of this fly press, so generally when you move this arm towards clockwise or anti-clockwise direction, it will move upward or downward direction. If you move it in a clockwise, let us say an example, you are moving this arm in the clockwise direction, so then this screws will move downward, so this will further move the ram towards downward, and the hole to take a punch will come down. So here you have the workpiece. So when you apply the pressure, then so that diameter hole will be created for that workpiece. So that is the work has been done for, or the operation has been done by means of using this fly presses. So it is simple and the low cost press suitable for a light operation. So for example, I can easily say you that, so the sheet metal operation, that is piercing and the blanking operation and bending purpose, they are going to use this fly press. So generally the ram fitted with the punch and job is rested on the bed, so you can use it and you can work it for a small operation with the sheet size is very small. So at that time you can use this fly press as a sheet metal operation machine. So let us have a practical application. Generally they are going to use in the industries to get a desired sheet metal operation. So we have around 3 to 4 minutes video, so let us see this video and understand. This is not an sheet metal actually, so he is having the workpiece, so that is having the square shape and having some dimensions. He is going to use this fly press for some desired work, but we have to concentrate only on this fly press and the sheet metal operations. So for that purpose, this is the accurate and practical video. So what I'm showing to you guys, so the topmost the arm what he is turning, so that is contains the balls. So one side that is having the ball, so he's rotating that one in a clockwise direction to get a desired hole at that place. Here it is as threaded. Generally it is having the square thread which will give a major motion, that is upward or downward direction. So when you move it in a clockwise direction, so it will move towards downward and it will cut the sheet metal. If you move it in anti-clockwise direction, it will move towards upward. So see here, so he want a hole having desired shape, so that's why he used this fly press and he got a job output. That is what he is showing is a ram is connected with the drill bit. So for handling this machine a little bit, the efficient worker is needed because the ball will act as a pressure, and it helps to rotate the arm in a clockwise direction easily to apply the more pressure. So this is the basement. He has given the supports for that fly press because so if you works under the high pressure condition and for heavy equipment, so it may be get moved into some other locations, so because of improper placement. So this is about fly press. So let us see the next pressing machine, so that is the power press. So in the image what you're seeing, this is a power press. This contains the different components from ram to guides. So ram, punch, die, block, crank, crankshaft, motor drive, flywheel, clutch, brake, stock feeder, scrap cutter, and guides, etc. So if you consider the different components working condition, if you if you see the first part is ram. So this is the ram actually. So this ram is a part that has a punch fitted at its bottom and moves up and down. So it will give a upward or downward direction to that. Okay, so the next one is punch. So this is the punch as a part of die set which makes direct contact to the working metal, so while moving towards downward direction. And the next part is the die or die block, we can call it as. So this die block is a part of die set which contains a hole, so that has the same shape and size as the part to be made. So this is the it is having the hole, so actually what we required as a output, so that diameter it is having. And the hardened and tempered die block involves actual cutting or shaping of a process. So that's why this is the die and punch, both elements are very much important for the sheet metal work. And the next one is the crank. So generally the crank is a part that converts the rotating motion of a motor, the rotating motion of a motor into what we called the sliding motion, or what we called the reciprocating motion. So generally it will converts the rotary motion into reciprocating motion. So that's why, so this is also a very much important component, so that is a crank. And next one is always the crankshaft. So this crankshaft generally connects between the crank and the ram. So it connects the crank and connects the ram. And you have a motor drive. So that driving motor, so it is an electric motor. Generally it is used to run the shaft to get a return stroke, or what we call to rotate the crank and provide the power to operate the ram. So that's why this is the motor having the shaft. So that shaft is connected through the belt to this driving element, so that is the crank. The crank and driving shaft both are connected by means of using the belt drives or gear drives generally, because if you use the belt drives, you have a stepped belt drive. So in that stepped belt drive you will get a different speed according to the changing of a pulley from one diameter to another diameter. Or if you use the gear system, you should have gears, so it may be a first gear or second gear or third gear having the different diameters. So that diameter help us to get a desired rpm or revolution. So according to that the ram will move forward or return stroke, so according to our timings and according to the rpm which will give from the drive motor. And another one is the flywheel. So the flywheel is always connected to this drive shaft because it will store the energy. So and it will store the energy when during the return stroke and delivers it at the working stroke. That's why generally they are going to use the flywheel. So generally its usage is to store the energy and they release the energy whenever you require. So that's why, so this is also the one of the major component, so the flywheel. And the next one is the clutch. So the clutch generally it help us to engage and disengage the drive from the crank. So whenever you require or whenever you want to change the speed, so then you can engage it or disengage it and connect it to the some other shaft and get a desired output of a reciprocating motion. So that's why they are going to use this clutch to engage and disengage the drive. And the next one is the brake. So the brake is very much important. So this brake is attached to the drive shaft to stop the strokes. So if you want to stop at a return stroke or a forward stroke, so then you need to apply the brake. So that is the application of this brake in this power press machine. And the stock feeder. So the stock feeder here, you are having the stock feeder. So it is having a rolled what we call the sheet metal. So the rolled sheet metal is fed into inside this working component. So it is feeding continuously. So whenever you required, so the operations will be done at this part and it will move like this in the forward direction. So it will store the strips or a sheet metal stock from the coil to the area between the punch and die operation. It will move it. So these are all the different components, different operations. So all these components combined together, we are call it as a power press. So if you consider the working condition, so generally first step is to start the drive motor. So this drive motor will rotate this driving shaft. So that shaft is connected to this crank. So this crank will further rotate. So this crank is connected to the crankshaft. So here the conversion of the rotary motion into the reciprocating motion occurs. So this is again connected to the ram by means of using this crankshaft. So this will further move the ram towards downward or upward direction, that is a reciprocating motion. So this ram is attached with the punch. So this punch, the major work is to give a hole or make a hole in the sheet metal. So when the ram moves towards downward direction, the coiled stripped stock will move towards forward, and the certain direction or certain desired place, so it will creates the hole. So then the return stroke occur. So then at that time the ram will move upward and the sheet metal move forward. So this is the continuous application for punching or for blanking purpose. They are going to use this power press as a major sheet metal operation work. So that is about the operation of a power press machine. So let us see some videos related to this. What you are observing, this is a power press. So at the topmost position, you have a flywheel which stores the energy while return stroke, and it will release the energy while doing the working stroke. So this is the ram moving towards upward or downward direction. Ram is connected to that punch. So that punch will create the holes for that sheet metal. So this sheet metal is feeding generally by means of using our hand. So otherwise we can also use some machinery equipments. At the topmost position, what you are seeing, that is the motor, electrical motor. So that electrical motor connected to this shaft by means of using some belt drives. So that's why it gives the reciprocating motion. So at certain speed, certain stroke rate, so according to that the work has been done. So it will create the holes according to our required dimension. So this is about the practical working condition of a power press. So this is generally run by means of using the electrical motor energy, electrical power supply. So you can see the animated part of the power press machine also. And these are all the power press machines generally available in the industries. So you can purchase it and you can do it for any other type of work. It may be a simple work to maximum complicated work of a sheet metal operation. So if it comes under the last part of the press, so the application part. So in that application part generally, so this is going to use by means of using a different variety field. So it may be a consumer appliances. Consumer appliances means you have any design or you need a required shape and size. You can order to that press working store, so they will design that and they will make that shape and they will give you back the desired shape, so you can use it for your own use. And generally in the construction field they are going to use it for a roofing. And industry side major application for a small components and accessories which is required for agricultural field and the home appliances everywhere. So in the market you can see the lot of small components which is available. So if you visit any city, so city markets, you can observe the lot of components which is done by means of press work. So that is available for a general usage. So this is the application related to this press work. So and agricultural parts whatever you required, so those parts are getting done by means of using this press working machine. And the automotive and aircraft, so in that aircraft for creating the body shape and some accessories they are going to use this press work. And vehicle bodybuilding, the bodybuilding can be done for a two-wheeler or a four-wheeler. So four-wheelers and two-wheelers majorly for bodybuilding they are going to use the press working machine to give a desired shape to that body. And the furnitures, in that furnitures you have the bending or punching or something else, so at that time you can use this press working machines. And household articles, a small household articles and railway equipments. So all these things are wide variety applications of a press working machine. So it completes your the fifth unit, so that is the sheet metal operations. So if you comes under the conclusion part, so we had a discussion about the sheet metal, the definition of sheet metal work. And generally we had a discussion about the type of sheet metals and the type of material which we are going to use for the sheet metal operation. So it may be the aluminum and majorly the stainless steel and the copper. So all these three items are generally they are going to use for a sheet metal operation. Generally you know the sheet metal having the thickness of 0.6 mm to 6 mm. So that is the thickness of a sheet metal. So it may be vary according to that gauge numbers. So gauge numbers, if you have a high gauge number then you have a less thickness, and you have a less gauge number you have a high thickness. I showed you guys so the gauge numbers the table. So after that we had sheet metal operations, that is the bending, shearing, punching, slitting, and the piercing, etc. All these sheet metal operations we had a discussion. So later on, so for doing those sheet metal operation, we require majorly the press working machine. So that is a press and types of press. So in that the press working machines, if it comes under the classification, that classification can be done according to the power available. So it may be electrical or mechanical power or hydraulic power and a pneumatic power, or generally a manual power. So later on, according to the shape and according to that what we call drive mechanism, so it may be done by means of using the crank or something else. And according to the sheet metal operations. Those sheet metal operations we have done, it may be a bending, slitting, or piercing. So all these operations we have done and we have finished it. And later on, the we had a discussion about the fly press. So it may be we are call it as an ball press also. So that fly press working, and the general industrial application of that fly press, and finally the power press. So the power press components, different components which will combine together, it will give desired the sheet metal operation to that. And later on, the final thing is application of a press, so which may be applicable in the consumer appliances, roofing, industrial, agricultural, automotive and aircraft and vehicles, bodybuilding, furnitures, household articles, and railway equipments. So all these are at different applications of a sheet metal work. So let us end this session at this time, and I would like to thank you all for your beautiful patience, and I wish you all the best for your exams. If you have any doubts and clarification, you can ask me by means of doing a call. Otherwise, you can mail to me. So the mail address and the contact number is given to you in the video. Thank you, Ananda. If you have any doubts, you can ask me. ಏನಾದ್ರೂ ಡೌಟ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ಕೇಳ್ಬೋದು.